Hey, we're back, and on today's episode, we're gonna tackle everything from whether Wi-Fi 7 gear is worth buying right now, to getting more bass out of a pair of HomePods, to fixing a mysterious line across your TV, sorting out glitchy soundbars, and cleaning up combing artifacts from old DVDs. We've got a packed one today, so let's just jump right in. Welcome back to Just Ask Caleb, everyone. I'm Caleb Dennison. You have tech questions. I have tech answers. If you have a question you need answered, email it to askcaleb@CalebRated.com, and we'll see if your question gets picked to be answered for the show. We're gonna start with one from Arthur, who writes, I'm tempted to upgrade to a Wi-Fi 7 router and mesh system because I want faster speeds and lower latency, but it's expensive and there aren't many devices that support it yet. Should I upgrade now or wait? Okay, this one's interesting because, well, for a number of different reasons. One, it's not necessarily tied to home entertainment, which is fun for once, but also because we've kind of been here before, right? With Wi-Fi 6. I mean, Wi-Fi 7 is real. We know it's fast. On paper, it's a big jump, okay? So more bandwidth, lower latency. It's supposed to be better in crowded networks. But here's the thing. Your network is only as strong as its weakest link. Your internet plan, for one, but also your devices and even your home's layout. That's what's really controlling your Wi-Fi experience. Like if you're on a 300 or 500 meg connection, Wi-Fi 7 isn't unlocking anything new for you. And most of your gear doesn't even support it yet. You pointed that out. So if you upgrade right now, you're mostly paying for potential that you can't really use. Now, if you've got gigabit or higher internet, a ton of devices, and you're planning to upgrade your phone and laptop soon, well, maybe now we should talk about an upgrade, because that's where matching the router to your actual needs starts making sense. But for most people, I think you should wait. If your Wi-Fi is working, just sit tight until it makes sense to do an upgrade. If it's not working, then you should fix the problem, but don't assume that Wi-Fi 7 is gonna be the magic bullet that fixes it. There's no magic bullet hiding in Wi-Fi 7. So bottom line is upgrade to fix a problem that you weren't able to fix with anything else, or because you want higher bandwidth, but not just for the attractive spec sheet. Now we're gonna talk about HomePods, which we don't do a ton of on this channel anymore, even though I think they're a lot of fun. I've got one from Mark who writes, I'm using 2 HomePods as a stereo pair. I also do that from time to time, but they don't have much punch. Can I add a subwoofer without ruining the imaging? And if so, what's the best way to integrate it? Okay, I like this one because I like to play around with the HomePods, and also I like bass. So I understand what your needs are. I also think that adding a subwoofer is not gonna mess with the imaging. That's not really what we need to be talking about. HomePods sound really good for what they are. Nice clarity, solid imaging, but yeah, they're not gonna really punch you in the chest like a subwoofer will. But the issue here is Apple. This is a closed system. There's no really clean way to just plug in a subwoofer and expand your system like you would with a traditional setup. So the short answer here is no, not in any official supported way can you add a subwoofer. You can try to hack something together maybe, but if you do that, you're gonna be dealing with sync issues and delay. It gets really messy really fast. So this is your choice. If you like the simplicity, stick with the HomePods and optimize them by changing their placement. Placement matters more than a lot of people think. Get them near a wall or a corner. Placing a speaker near a corner almost always increases the bass output. It doesn't necessarily make it better bass though. If what you really want though is that deep physical bass, the kind that you feel, you're starting to outgrow what HomePods are built to do. And at that point, you're looking at a system that actually supports a subwoofer. So yeah, you can tweak the HomePods themselves, but you can't turn them into something that they're not. This next one is about a soundbar issue, and the viewer wanted to remain anonymous, so we'll just say that a viewer wrote in saying, I've got a mid-price soundbar that randomly drops audio and sometimes switches inputs all by itself. I'm ready to replace it, but don't want to overspend. Should I stick with a soundbar or look at something else? I actually remember another email like this where the person who wrote in said they were having this kind of a problem with the Vizio soundbar, and they were wondering if they should stick with Vizio or go with a different brand. That's really hard to answer because every device interacts with every other device differently when you're talking about HDMI, CEC stuff, that consumer electronics control stuff. I will say that the newer the soundbar device, the more likely it's going to work smoothly, but not necessarily with older TVs. Switching teams doesn't necessarily solve these problems. I wish there were a cleaner answer to that. There just isn't. I will say that this topic comes up a lot. The good news is you can usually fix it before buying anything new. Most of this problem is going to come down to HDMI handshake issues. That's how CEC works, right? Is when you get a clean handshake. The first thing I would do is swap out the HDMI cable. Seriously, the HDMI cable matters. Not all are created equal, as you might be led to believe. And make sure you're using the ARC or the eARC port on your TV. The next would be firmware. Make sure that your TV and the soundbar are running the most recent firmware that is available for them. So if there's an update, run that. Then just power cycle everything. I feel like I've said this a million times. You want to unplug it, give it a few minutes, plug it back in. And then after that, check your TV's CEC settings and make sure nothing looks funny there, because sometimes that's what's going to cause the random input switching. And by turning off everything and then turning it back on, it can sometimes stabilize things. Now, if you've done all of that stuff and it's still glitchy, yeah, you might be dealing with a failing unit. Here's where I'm gonna push just a little bit. If you're already gonna replace this soundbar, don't just replace it right away. Take a second, think about it. Think about whether you want to level up your audio system, because now would be the time to do it. Soundbars are convenient, but they're limited in some ways. And even a modest receiver and speaker setup is gonna be more reliable and sound better. But I would say fix it if you can, the soundbar. If you're gonna level up the soundbar, they really have come a long way in the last few years. And I think that you'll be impressed with the upgrade, but just make sure that that's the direction you wanna go before you go and you spend your money. Grim writes, and I should point out that Grim is a friend of mine. They have a lot to do with my success, and I thank them very much for that. We worked together for a long time. But Grim writes, recently my 3-year-old TV developed a faint horizontal line across the middle of the screen. It shows up on every input. Could this be a setting I can fix, or is the panel failing? So yeah, this is not great news. Anytime you see a line, vertical or horizontal, on a TV screen, it's usually not gonna be good. If that line is there on every input and it doesn't go away, that's almost never gonna be a settings issue. Usually it's the panel or the panel driver built inside the TV. Now you can try a reset. If your TV has a panel refresh mode, you can go ahead and do that. I don't think yours does, if I remember correctly. I would also swap out the HDMI cable, make sure that's not doing it. Switch the source entirely, make sure that the source is not doing it. But if you go through all of that and the line is consistently there, that's a hardware problem, which unfortunately I suspect that it is. Unfortunately, panel repairs are almost never worth it. By the time you price it out, you're better off just replacing the TV. If it's still under warranty, absolutely go that route. But if it's not, yeah, you're probably looking at getting a new TV. So you didn't do anything wrong, but also it's not something that you can fix in a menu or with swapping out a cable. You're gonna have to replace your TV. Here's one I didn't think we'd be talking about on this channel for a while anyway, DVD interlacing. Ken writes, when I watch my old DVD collection on my 4K TV, I sometimes see jagged edges or weird motion, especially on fast movement. What's causing that, and can I fix it? Okay, so I love this question because a lot of people see this kind of thing when they're watching their DVDs and just assume that there's something wrong with their TV. What you're seeing is almost certainly interlacing artifacts. See, DVDs were mastered in interlaced video, and modern TVs are progressive. They show the entire image all at once as opposed to doing odd lines and then even lines. So something has to take those interlaced frames in real time, that's what de-interlacing is, and put them together. And when that process isn't done very well, you get exactly what you're describing. You get jagged edge, you get flicker, sometimes weird motion. So here's the thing. Either your player is doing that work and sending a progressive signal to the TV, or your TV is getting an interlace signal and it's doing the work of turning it into a progressive image. So I would say this, if your player is set to 480p, 720p, 1080p, just 4K, it's handling the de-interlacing. If it's set to 480i, your TV is usually doing that work. One of those is usually gonna be better than the other. Usually the player is better, so try both and see which looks cleaner. Now, if you watch a lot of DVDs and you're still watching it on a DVD player, I'd upgrade your player. A decent Blu-ray player is gonna do a better job of this de-interlacing stuff. And it's gonna do a better job if it's a better Blu-ray player than a cheap one will. But also, let's just be real here. DVDs have limits. You can improve the image a little bit, you can clean it up, but you're not gonna really be turning that into 4K. It's gonna look rough. And the bigger the screen you put it on, the rougher it's gonna look, because you can build that image up so that it fills all the pixels, but that doesn't mean that it's a really clean, crisp image. So bottom line, tweak whichever device is doing the processing and you will probably get a slightly better result, but just temper your expectations a little bit. DVDs are just not gonna look that good, especially the bigger the screen gets. All right, that's gonna do it for this episode. If you've got a question that you want featured in the show, send it in and make it a good one. The more it helps like other people, the more likely it is to make it in. And I'm curious, are you still watching DVDs or have you moved everything over to streaming or Blu-rays? Let me know down in the comments. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. I'll see you on the next one. And until then, take care of yourselves. Am I, hold on a second. I need to make sure I'm in focus. I am, thank God.